Okay, fourth component. This is where the movement is going to be so apparent. This is where it really kicks in. Alright, we're going to do hip and shoulder counter rotation. This is actually how we walk. It's part of the gait pattern. But we're using it as an active range of motion pattern. Alright? Don't need the yoga strap anymore. I take this is a little 5-pound hand weight, okay? And what we're going to do is there are two ways to do this. And I'll just explain this. If I was standing up, this would be hip and shoulder counter rotation. Is this the walking pattern, okay? When I get down on the mat, it's more of what they call the fundamental rolling pattern. Yeah, don't worry about whether you understand that or not. I'm going to show you how we're going to do this, okay? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to practice this rolling pattern, but we're going to initiate it from our lower body. Alright? So the way that we do that is, I'm going to hold the weight right here like this. That's going to stabilize my shoulder, but relatively speaking, it's getting my shoulder rotating back around to the right, okay? So we're going to start like this. The first motion is going to be, we're going to go like this, okay? There's hip and shoulder counter rotation. My shoulders are rotating to the right, my hips are rotating to the left. Here's the movement. Now I'm going to change. Now I'm going to stabilize my left shoulder. And my hip is going to rotate to the right. This shoulder is rotated to the left. Okay? So it looks like this. Alright, the second thing that's happening in this pattern is that when I stabilize my shoulder and my hips rotate away, I'm getting a stretch of the pec. And if you look up in Janda's classification, you're going to find out that the pec always gets short. So that's why it's part of this active range of motion. Alright? So not only are we getting hip and shoulder counter rotation, but we're going to stretch the pec at the same time, okay? So we're like this. There it is. There it is. There it is. There it is. There it is, okay? Now we're going to shift up these angles just a little bit, okay? Now I want to get the stretch on the pec minor. So before this motion, you can see where my thigh and my arm are relatively parallel. Okay, that's hip and shoulder counter rotation, and I'm getting a big stretch on the pec. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up on a 45-degree angle here with my arm. That switches it from the pec to the pec minor. Now instead of my thigh being at 90 degrees, it's going to be down on about a 45, like that, okay? So now it's the same thing. Hip and shoulder counter rotation, but we're getting the pec minor into the action here, okay? And you'll feel everything shifts a little bit on that. Okay, so then we're going to move into the third position from where we're initiating from our lower body. Okay, that's going to be, I'm going to go like this, down on a 45. And in order to get my thigh parallel with my arm, I got to pull it up. Okay, so it's going to be like that. I'm going to shift over here like this. Hip and shoulder counter rotation, initiating from the lower body. Okay? So I'll go back through those three. We start out, get the pec and hip rotation. Our arms are out at approximately 90 degrees from the midline. Now we change to a 45-degree angle, like this. And now we're going to drop it down to a 45-degree angle like that. We're getting hip and shoulder counter rotation at 3 angles, initiating from the lower body. Okay, so now we're going to initiate the rolling pattern from the upper body. It's a little easier. Just lay your feet a little wider than shoulder width. That's going to help stabilize your hip. Before we were stabilizing our shoulder with the weight. Now we're going to stabilize our hips just with the weight of our legs. Okay? So the rolling pattern now is going to look like this. Okay? Now we're going to switch. There it is, like that. Okay? So now we're initiating the rolling pattern from the upper body. And we're on a 90-degree angle here, perpendicular to the midline of our body. Okay? So now we're going to drop that up on a 45 like we did before. There, and now we drop it down to 45 degrees in the other direction. We're getting hip and shoulder counter rotation, initiating from the upper body. I know that's a lot of information. That's why this is a review video. We've already really hashed this out, and you understand it. You know, this is just to help you as you start doing this on your own. But anyway, hip and shoulder counter rotation, initiating from the lower body and initiating from the upper body, and we're working at 3 different angles with the lower body, 3 different angles with the upper body, hip and shoulder counter rotation. Give it a try.